Hello and welcome to Wait, It Gets Better, the improvisational storytelling podcast, where we serve you up fresh-made stories on a silver platter. I'm, of course, Levi.
I'm Reed.
And I'm Seth.
And we're here to tell you a story. All right, episode 2 of our latest story. Seth, you going to do us a little synopsis of what we talked about last week?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, let's hear it.
So Reed started out with an opening scene, and it was a guy kind of getting breakfast ready and kind of looking over his homestead that he's building in kind of like in the American kind of expansion where they'd move west and stake out a claim for themselves, and then the government would cede it. I think it was like the Homesteading Act and stuff, where then if they could keep build a homestead and show that they could tend the land, then they would be ceded so many acres of frontier.
Right.
And so that was kind of our beginning scene as he's meeting a new day and kind of looking at the progress he's made and kind of looking ahead to what he's working towards.
Yeah.
The other world building things that we had were magic system, and I had prophecy. Levi, you had a magic system, which was kind of a system of like, would it be like hereditary, like abilities, that then, kind of this group of people that then had it, then they would pass certain abilities on to their children, depending on what they had. And then, different things that the mother was, exposed to during pregnancy that would then help turn. So like if the mother spent a lot of time out in the ocean, and sailing, the baby would, gain kind of a hereditary ability to, like read the signs of the waves and the currents and,
or control
sailing
the weather
and control the weather, stuff like that. And so it kind of made this society of, I think we kind of said like kind of an aristocratic, really arranged marriages to, kind of keep that, bloodline stronger and stronger with more and more kind of, hereditary gained abilities. And then, special.
Everyone's really obsessed with like what your mother ate and did during your birth. And then like everyone's really obsessed with like what you're supposed to do. Like, so as soon as you conceive a child, it's like, oh, well, you have to like eat all these foods in this order in order for your kid to like have this, that, or the other ability.
Yeah. And then, that's kind of the synopsis of a little bit of that, kind of magic system that we got going on. And then in my prophecy was, and I think how we kind of put it together was then it was actually it kind of made like a couple different people groups that had these, different sides. So aside from the power, then you have this kind of group that has more of a prophetic, abilities.
Yeah.
Where it, some of the people that have it lighter can just like, hold on to an object. Let's say like I held on to like one of your socks, right? And I held on to it and I held on to it and I focused on it and focused on it. Then I would start getting like kind of glimpses or visions of like, things concerning you, right?
Right.
And that's kind of how like a light way that it would kind of pick up. So you can have some, let's say like some small tribal shamans that'll like hold on to little objects of everyone in the village so they can, get glimpses, of kind of what's going on. And that was kind of the light side of it. And then a stronger side would be the people that then have a stronger affinity towards it. So they don't actually have to like hold on to those items. They just kind of get it downloaded, like walking into an area and they'll like kind of see the potential crop yield or like what the weather is going to be like in an area or, different things of intrigue that might be happening or see past, like the fake smiles or see into intention or thoughts or stuff like that. Now on a stronger level. And then it was kind of put that, those two don't mix. So like if you had like a strong prophet, that power wouldn't hereditarily cross over into someone with one of the other powers.
Yeah.
Right. And then you had a kind of a third group that was more like technologically minded. Everything was technology and advancement and engineering. And so you kind of had these three kind of people power groups in this kind of world that, all had this different focus and at different times, more of the prophetic religious would take power over certain countries, or a more kind of aristocratic, family lineage with power that kind of holds sway or a more technocratic, industrious kind of thing taking over as one or the other waned in kind of not sterility. I mean, maybe that too, but like, just kind of the ebb and flow of power or certain countries kind of becoming more condensed with one of these people group or the other. And then kind of at some point, so I guess you could say that this story turns into almost like an alt history, because then they start going over the ocean and colonizing this new world. And that's where then kind of our beginning scene takes place, where I don't know if Reed had a name for him, but
yeah, I called him Raymond, but
Raymond is kind of like striking out into this kind of frontier land to make a homestead for himself. And that's kind of the thing in this new land, is that it kind of upset that kind of isolated, condensed power structure of these different groups, where then like it kind of took a while for like let's say some of the people with power to control, some of the weather and the sailing and wind.
Yeah.
Because they would get past a certain point and it would like break out of that, powers. I don't know if that's the right word, but like power zone, where then, that power had been consolidated. And so leaving that kind of air of influence kind of made them not be able to do some of the things that they were able to do. So this new land is kind of this mix of, new lines of, important people as they kind of regain certain powers or influence over certain areas. So it's kind of made a kind of a toss-up kind of melting pot of,
Right.
I remember there's like one element that I thought was real interesting, that there was like there was a physiological side to this inherited magic system, where there would be literally like you called it like a pearl growing in the glandular system, or in the brain, literally.
Yeah.
And then you introduced an interesting character, this investigator, kind of private investigator type guy. Father was a biologist, and mother kind of a earth mother type hippie, kind of of the earth and plants and herbs and stuff. And he had just really heightened powers of observation. And he was apparently, there's been a rash of murders in which this pearl, so to speak, is being cut out.
Yeah.
Of the victims.
Yeah, I remember that. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's good, because I didn't quite remember that. So, because I was about done with, kind of the basic rundown. That's a good thing to remember and put back in there.
I think it's a pretty good 1,000-foot view.
Yeah.
What story elements did you guys have for this week?
I have the villain.
I have Wise Old Woman.
I have Ka-Tet members.
Ooh.
Should we go? I want to hear the Wise Old Woman and the villain first.
Okay. Do you want to go first, Reed, or do you want to hear the Wise Old Woman first?
I don't care. I'm good either way.
Okay. So the Wise Old Woman. I just read The Stand, and I'm bad at trying to think of names, so kind of as an inspiration of that, they just call her Mother.
Okay.
And she's is on the prophetic kind of group of things, and the way that kind of comes out is kind of being able to like look at something and almost like then in real time, but then like fast forward time out for, the things that she's seeing around her. Right. So then she, in most of the time where it comes in dreams or visions or inklings and, stuff like that. But then she sees it like in real time. So like if she sees like a sapling, right?
Yeah.
And she'll look and like watch it like grow and develop and, bloom and fruit and, drop and, leaves change and, like through its whole cycle. Right.
Cool.
And so then she'll see that with people, with fields and, be like, okay, kind of like you'll plant this field and I see that then by October, it all burns down. Right. Right. And so sometimes it's like, okay, so then don't plant a field there so that, all that, labor and time isn't lost. And sure enough, some accident will happen and that field will burn down. But now, right. So I'm just trying to think of a way that some of that could be helpful. But yeah, that's kind of what it is. So that then kind of can see into then like in real time, like, so if she'll look at someone, she'll see them, and then like focus on it, and then she'll see them age and then different scars or things happen or like be like a cutoff point or, kind of different things. And then,
right.
Yeah.
I think I remember one of the other aspects we had was that 1,000 years ago or so, there was like 3 nations and there was a god or something. And you guys remember this?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was something, I don't know if it was like a direct god or something. It was something that then kind of like one of those things where like different powers were given for, a certain purpose.
Yeah, they were challenged basically to try and reach the god, and like the three nations went three different ways, and now here thousands of years later they're still sort of trying, but they have no inkling that that's what they're actually trying to do.
Yeah, I have that one of the clans has like a strong thing predicting the return of I've written down of the messenger. Does that ring a bell?
Yeah, maybe the prophecy people.
Yeah.
But it's kind of this idea that it's something that it's so old that they've forgotten that that's like kind of why they're pushing themselves to get better. Why the technology people are pushing themselves, why the Pearl people are pushing themselves, why the prophecy people push themselves. So the Ka-Tet members are, so to be a Ka-Tet is to be a group of people bound together by fate, and you don't always get the best members, but you get the right members.
Yeah.
So they are a chain gang, right? So they're prisoners, and they're going to the capital city to be probably killed because of whatever they're doing, because of their thievery, because of their debauchery, because of their insolence, because of their anarchy.
Drugs and rock and roll.
Yeah, sex, drugs, and rock and roll. And among them is a person from the Prophecy clan, a person from the Pearl Magic clan, and a person from the sort of technology clan, right? But what I think this is going to be is going to be something weird where there's a chain gang and it's full of 5 or 8 people, and then the wise old woman sees them and says something about them sort of in general. And so there's this kind of assumption that like one of them is important, but they don't really know which one. That makes sense?
Yeah.
And I think because what the idea is that it's not a particular person. It'll be 3 people at the end, right? I think that maybe this chain gang was formed because these 3 groups of people, or these 3 people, or this was a really unique instance, right? That this is a mix of prophecy, technology, and Pearl Magic people, because that typically doesn't happen. Typically, those people kind of regard each other as other, but maybe all of these are kids from a specific town where those sorts of prejudices weren't taught necessarily. And so they have like some kind of unique relationship with each other, almost like if a Pearl Magic person and a prophecy person could like get over their differences and their irritations with each other, they'd find that their powers do in fact start to work together. But it's not a thing that's allowed to happen. And then the technology guy people typically come in and invalidate the Pearl Magic people because he's got this new machine that'll do you know what I mean? It's like,
yep,
it's like a system that defeats itself because it was designed to work together, but the enemy has come in and made it so it won't. So I don't think that these are the main characters or the heroes or whatever, but I could almost see the Ka-Tet being this kind of group of people who are traveling to the capital city or to whatever city the hero is going to be at, and they are going to be able to like break out at the right time. But for right now, they're just like sort of traveling. That makes sense?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not the most interesting Ka-Tet members I've ever come up with, but here we are. What's up, Reed?
I got kind of a nasty villain.
Okay.
You ready for me?
Are you ready?
Yeah.
I'm ready. Put me in, coach.
So, Lanigan, he's an educator. He's a charismatic leader, teacher, particularly among the Pearl people. Really, and his focus has been to inculcate people that fall under his sway with a kind of a notion of norms of society that you have to kind of follow along. And he's there's kind of a shaming process that is subtly introduced in among the institutions or people who go to be trained and learn kind of shaming anybody with too individualistic a bent. And it's kind of it's a seductive kind of a thing. You want these people to feel like they're headed toward being part of an enlightened, educated elite. And he's secretly, surreptitiously kind of also seducing those who are more prophecy oriented. And he's gathered kind of disciples around him, people,
Right.
especially in the educational community and among the tech oriented, more they fancy themselves as more down to earth and practical. But there's also sowing the seeds in through the educational system and focusing on people that are in the communications that to kind of preach this kind of norms of how everybody's got to get along, inclusion, even though there are, he doesn't push it too far because people come up through these systems that are naturally, divided into kind of three clans. But preparing people to respond to leaders and kind of get along, and he fancies himself as studying the prophecy people with a bent toward figuring out how to appear to be, fashioning his circumstances in such a way that he'll appear to be like the answer or the object of prophecies previously thrown around, and also in the midst of these, not only does he have these educators that are sort of, they find themselves rising in academic circles by towing the company line. It kind of takes away from true study, but it creates a kind of a cult of the elite, right? But in the midst of that, he's found people that are without high functioning sociopathic type people that aren't troubled much by conscience, and he's very clever at getting something on people so that he can control them. He develops among this group, I would call him his henchmen, of kind of a following. These people aren't going to be drawn. He's not going to be able to grow loyalty among them in the traditional way because they're not that kind of people, but they're handy people to have around if there's some, like the old spies the KGB used to call it wet work. They'd have certain assassin type people. And one of the things
this professor employs assassins?
Right. And he just,
okay.
He's a charismatic guy. He has kind of a network, and it's especially among the Pearl people, he is finding out, who will be compliant. And if somebody doesn't look like they're going to be, if they look like they might be resistant and more individualistic, he's sending, his guys to go and knock them off. And he's, they cut out the Pearl and try to figure out what, why are these not as compliant.
So you're deciding that's what
Well, I just thrown out that's one of the things that he's trying to do. He's just trying to develop control, kind of a
Okay.
So what you were reacting to that?
I'm just curious. You that's the thing that you feel like that's what the detective. That's the one that the detective is discovering.
Well, there may be. That was where I got the idea, obviously.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Great. So he is not just an educator trying to manipulate people he's actually like being a violent person now.
Yeah. But, trying to keep it all on the hush hush, right?
Right. So here's what I think. I think I'm going to change my story element. Sorry, everyone. Did you guys know you could do that? You can change your own story element. No. So what I think is I think that all the things I said were true, right? There's a chain gang full of these people being brought to the Capitol, but they're not the Ka-Tet. The Ka-Tet is a group of 3 people who are all that chain gang's older siblings, right? So there's 3 older siblings, and then all of their younger siblings, something happened, right? And the government or the whatever local area or this guy or whatever basically went and rounded up this huge family, which had kind of started to mingle all 3 clans together. He rounded them all up and is, bringing them to the capital or the main area because these 3 siblings, they're not siblings, they're closer to cousins, were basically like being Robin Hood-esque anti-government-esque operatives. That makes sense?
Yeah.
So now the story takes place where they are traveling to this area, to the capital area, basically they're tracking down all of their siblings who have all been captured. And they don't typically get along with each other perfectly because they are from, of course, different clans. But Ka has brought them together for this. So maybe they aren't the hero, or maybe they are the hero. I don't know. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
My thought but behind the disappearing pearls, which it can be that for sure. I would say the hero's sidekick, the villain's sidekick is a nasty, terrible person who found out that you can consume the pearls in order to temporarily get the extra power boost. And so that's why he started to instruct the henchmen to rip out the pearls, partially so they could study them and discover them, but also partially so that he could eat them and become a bad guy and become a crazy, powerful bad guy. Anyways, this is only episode 2 of this, so we are still kind of figuring out how the story is going to go, right? Seth, you have any cool ideas?
Not at the moment, no.
Okay, that's totally fine. Cool ideas, they sort of, they come to us not at the moment. I think I'm really weary. I just got back from a big trip, so I think I'm going to call it for today, and then we will come back next week with more. Hopefully have a little bit more energy. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us for this episode of Wait It Gets Better. If you would like to send us a message to let us know how cool you think we are, just send us an email at waititgetsbettercast@gmail.com. If you want to tell us about how terrible we did, message us on Twitter at @getsbettercast. And until next time, don't forget to hold on and wait, because it does get better eventually, but I've been told from time to time.